Okay, this is the first class. Welcome to Amy class. This is the first class, so you might be interested in knowing what we are going to study and why it is important for us and what we are going to study. So let's get it started with the PIP introduction. So PIP is short for what is the purpose of our class and why is it important and what is meaningful in our class, and another P means the preview. So I'm going to show a snapshot of how our class is going to be. Maybe first of all that you might be, this is the class of the Global Society and English. Maybe some of you might expect, wow, this is going to be a class of some kind of grammar. No. Maybe we are not going to learn what is the correct way of using English. So I would say this class has little to do with the form of the English. I would say this is not the class to learn the standard English and Oxford English and American English. Of course, there is some grammatical element in our class. However, that is not the focus of our class. And I found that some of you are major in English literature, so maybe you think that maybe we are going to handle some English literature. Yes, we are going to handle a little bit of English literature, but that's not the focus of our class. Of course, we'll be talking about how is the relationship between the English and its literature. And also this is in global society, so you might think, so what are the global issues? We are going to handle some of the global issues. Yes, we are going to handle some of the global issues. For example, we'll be talking about one of the major issues is the demography. So what is the demography? Then is there any game-changing events that is occurring in the global society? Yes, that could be one of the topics. Maybe we can talk about how about the global economy. Is there any substantial changes in the global economy? Who is the winner, who is the loser? Yes, that will be the part of our topic, but that's not the entire focus. The only thing that we are going to do is we are going to build a connection between English as a common language and how it affects the global language. So in this regard, that the first topic, that our class will start with the question, the most important question. The question is, why English? Why English deserves to be the global level to the word common language? Obviously, there is no question that English has obtained a global status as the world's common language. So maybe we can ask the question, why English has obtained such a status? Is it because then we will try to find these answers? Maybe the first answer could be, we can find in the answer that is it because of the power of its speakers? Then you may think of the British Empire. There's sometimes the British Empire, they begin to emerge and they begin to occupy some countries in Africa, and they were moving into Canada, Australia, and they continued the extension of their territory. Maybe you were thinking about maybe that's because of the power of British people. Maybe that could be one of the major reasons that made English a global status. Yes, that's true. But we are going to share another stories. There are another cases that can contradict. So what are the stories? Is there any other stories that can contradict, that can challenge our notion that the English has risen to become a world language because of the power of its speakers? Actually, our textbook author, David Crystal, his major point is Why English is global? Because of the power of British Empire and because of the power of economic dominance by the American, and is one of the major points that our textbook author has stressed. But he also introduced another question. What is the second one? So is it because of the number of its speakers? Yes or not? As you know, there are how many world population? There are about 7 billion, more than 7 billion world population. And it's interesting to know that 1/3 of world population, they can use English. Of course, there are some differences in the level of their competence, on their proficiency and fluency, but 1/3 of world population, they can use English. So this is something numerical issue. So is it because, but however, on the other hand, however, that we must think about, there are still 2/3 of world population, they are unable to use English still in the global society. And also in this regard, when it comes to number, there is an important concept, there is an important thing that we must consider. What is it? So how about the number of the people who are speaking English as a mother tongue? Then how about the number of the people who are speaking English as a secondary language? Then how about the number of people who are using English as a foreign language? So in this case, there are some Korea, or some people, English speakers in Korea, Japan, and Chinese, they belong to this third group. And when it comes to the second group, who are speaking English as a secondary language, it's India, Singapore, and other 50 countries. They belong to the second group. And who belong to the first group? Of course, there are the Britain, USA, they are using English as a mother tongue language, Irish, Canada, New Zealand, and America. So this is an interesting issue. So one of the major topics that we are going to deal in our class is the numbers, but the number itself is not so interesting, but more interesting is to compare the number between those who are mother tongues, English speakers of mother tongue, or English speakers of a foreign language, or secondary language. So there is something unique event. So the so-called unique event is occurring in recent decade. So we are going to discuss what is the unique event that is occurring in the global society when it comes to its use of English. So this will be I would say this is a very interesting concept. So to get the numbers, so look at the numbers. So we will take this question about, is it the matter of number when it comes to power of English? However, there is another subject matter that we are going to discuss. That is the cultural legacy. Why English is globally powerful? Is it because of its cultural legacy? So I mean the cultural legacy. So English language, we must think about its strength. Then its strength comes from two things. So there are two types of oral language or spoken language and written language. And where does the real power of the language come? So then we should talk about cultural legacy in literature. So we are going to take the trace of English literature. So what is the power of English literature and how is it related to the rise of English as the world's common language? Then we are going to take another trail. I would say that there are two trails that we are going to trace. The first trail is, I would say, there's a local trail of English. So what does it mean? So I'll be talking about the time when English had remained as a local language only for British people. So I would say that is the local trail of English. So we'll be talking about how English was born and when was English born and how English has evolved and how English has changed and who were the visitors and who were the conquerors and how it was affected by another people and another people. Actually, one of the major topics is English it has undergone such a dynamic. The process of very dynamic and it was one of the characteristics. It's because English was in constant contact with the different people, with the different culture, and different languages. This is one of the major topics that we are going to handle. So what kind of contact? So who were the major cultures, who were the major people, then what kind of contact has been made with the English language and then how it has affected the evolution of English. That would be, I would say, in this way that we are going to share a lot of stories as we are tracing the local trail of English. Then we can go back to the history. Then we can put the English in the history context of English. This is the first I would say this is the first the local trail of English. So. And after tracing the local trail of English, then we will move to another trail. That is, I would say, that is the global trail of English. So what is the global trail of English means? It means, I would say, that is the time when the English language, they started the expansion of, it began its spread to the global society. So in other words, the English, by some certain time, the English was no longer the language for the British people. So English began to spread around the world. English began to move around the world. So English began to spread to India, began to spread to West Africa, and began to New Zealand, and it began to go to America and Canada. It continued its movement around the world. So we are going to follow the track. We are going to trace the track. So why? So the globe, why it began, and how did it affect the rise of English? What was the major driver that make English the global level? Let me summarize again. There are two trails that we are going to take in the following classes. The first trail is a local trail. That is the local trail. English was used as a local language only for the British people. Then we will follow the global trail. The global trail, we are going to trace the English's movement around the world. In other words, we are going to put in English on the geographic history context. In other words, that we are going to see how English was spreading across the world. Then you can see what is the source of the English, why English is unique, and why English continued its spread around the world. They can find a clue to our question that why English has risen as the world common language. And also, so I've talked about, first of all, the local trail of English, second, the global trail of English, and we'll be also taking the literature trail, but there is another trail, I would say, that is the Bible trail. So, Bible trail. So when we speak about the birth of English, we usually start with the Northern German tribes that arrived in British Ireland, I would say that mean usually 150,000-year-old history of English that moved from Britain to south of English. But we have another historic trail that can bring back much farther into the old time. That is the Bible trail. That has taken place for about 5,000 years. That's why I have taken the Bible trail so that we can find some insight from it. So the Bible trail can give us some insight about its relationship with the English. First, if we look at the history of a Bible's translation, we can see the movement of lingua franca during each different time of the word history. So I mean the lingua franca, the Greek used to be the lingua franca, then it moved to Latin under the Roman Empire. So we can broaden our perspective about the lingua franca. And second, we can also extend the Bible trail into another topic of Christianity and see what are the Christian influence on the English. And this will bring back us to the Old English time when Christianity was a double standard with Anglo-Saxon paganism. Then we will discuss in later class. So when you are studying the Bible trail. And with this background in mind, we are going to take a mental trip along the trail of the Bible translation. To see the Bible trail is to see the missionary vision. So these are the examples that we are going to do in the Bible trail. So we have another important topic when you try to answer to the question why English. That is word. That is lexical treasure. We are going to discuss the lexical treasure. So, as I said, there are about 400 million English speakers of English mother tongue, and that is more important. And there is most important thing is there is a growing global total of English speakers, as I already mentioned. And what makes English unique is constant contact with different languages. So we are going to talk what are the different languages and what are its effect on English. So I would say that English has constantly imported different language. First of all, it imported from Latin when it was ruled by the Roman Empire, and there was a French influences when it was ruled by Roman French people, and also it was attacked by Viking people. Then English was influenced. English has adopted many words from the Vikings' words, and English used to be an importer of the words. And also when you are tracing the global trade of English, that we can see that English has English is an exporter of the many words. However, when he spread to America, then he started a lot of new words from native Indians, and also he adopted a new word because in native England there were some trees and animals that has never sung while they were in Britain. So anyway, so English has also adopted words from the Spanish people, French people, and Dutch people. And in this way, the English in constant contact with other languages that it constantly imported other words and while also exporting its languages. So in this way, it's lexicon treasure. English has a lexicon treasure. So English has continued to be expanded, continued to be enriched, and also English has increased its lexical stock. So. And the most remarkable thing that has recently happened in the recent case is English the electronic evolution, with the introduction of internet and computer, the people, the global society has never been such closely connected in human history than now. So now people are blogging and texting and tweeting. For example, people in America can blogging and texting and tweeting messages to thousands of people who are living in different parts of a continent like Africa, India, or China. The world is electrically shrunk. So this electrically shrunk, and also the world has never been so closely in human history. Now is physically. You can fly. You can take a flight, and then you can go anywhere in the world in only one day. So the world has become bigger, and the world has become smaller, and the world continues to be under shrinkage. So what does it mean to the status of English? So that means the words is a closer contact, so they means they have a need for someone, the common medium of communication. So in this way, we will continue to try to ask the answer to the question of why English. So the first question is the matter of the power of speakers. Then we will move on to the second question. It's a matter of a numerical power, and also we'll move on to the cultural, that is it because of the cultural legacy in literature. Then we also tracing the Bible trace, so we can get a broader insight about the relationship between common language and the global society. And in doing this, we're also taking we are taking a mental trip along the two trails. One is a local trail of English as a local language that for the British people. Then we will follow the next trail, that is the global trail of English, how English was spread around the world in the global society. So as we continue moving one subject to another, then there will be another question. What is it? Why not Chinese? Why not Hindi? Why not Spanish? Why not French? This could be the next global lingua franca, or at least this language can challenge the dominance of English as a common language. So in this regard, we are going to bring up another important issue, that would be, is there any game-changing trend that is occurring in the today's global society? So we are trying to build a connection between the global society issue and the language. So what are the examples of global issues? Maybe you can talk about demography. What is the population? Is there any changes in the number of the people? There is some people, the population is some countries, the population is under shrinkage. Korea, for example, we have one of the world's lowest fertility rate. Anyway, we are going to build a connection between the demography and the language. So demography will be one issue, and also we will move on to economy issue. For example, how about the middle class? So there is, for the first time in human history, since 2010, the population of a city has become bigger than the population of a country. In other words, there are much more people, more people living in city than those who are living in countries. So what does it mean? It means a lot. It's a very notable fact when it comes to economy. So that means the rise of middle class. Why? Because the middle class consumption is one of the major factors that can affect the global business. So we are going to discuss, is there anything happen? Is any changes happen in the middle class consumption? Is there any changes? Is there any central gravity of middle class consumption is changing? Of course, everybody knows the United States and European countries, they have a biggest, the middle class consumption, but is there any changes occurring? Why we are talking this? Because that has something to do with the position of English. So is there any other countries whose middle class consumption is going to be bigger than the US? Maybe their language, maybe can become the next global language. This is a very dangerous assumption, but it's possible. We are going to discuss what is the relationship between the economic power and the language. Why? Because we have already talked about the power of its speakers. That is one of the reasons that make the English has become the dominant language for every area in business. It is the same. Maybe two decades later, China or India may replace English. Then maybe why not Chinese? Why not Hindi? That could be the next global language. Is it possible? We are going to discuss about this one. So first of all, we were talking about why English. Then we will talk about, is it a matter of a number? Is it a matter of power of the speakers? Or is it because of the literature? Or we are going to take in the Bible trail? And is it because of a lexical treasure that makes English powerful? After doing that, we will move on to the next subject. What is the next subject? Next subject is why not Chinese and why not Hindi? Then we'll be talking about global turning point, I would say. So is there any global turning point that might lead to replacement English with other languages like Hindi or Chinese to become the next word common language? So in this regard, in order to answer to this question, then we must talk about what makes English very strong and what is the recent phenomenon that has never been existed in human history. Our textbook author, David Crystal, calls it as the unique event. So we are going to discuss what is a unique event that has never occurred in the linguistic history. So what is a unique event? Then there are some keywords we are going to discuss. So what is the unique event? Maybe so there is a unique event. So one of the major topics is that there is something very strange that has occurred in the past 5 decades. That is, there is two kinds of English has emerged. They coexist. One is linguistic purity. One is standard English, Oxford English, American English. So we need to continue to study standard English. So it means that so in this regard, there is a keyword, intelligible. In other words, we are learning standard English so that we are intelligible. So what does it mean? Why we are learning English? Because we are intelligible to other peoples in different countries. That is intelligible. This is one of the keywords that we are going to take this class, intelligible. There are two sides of learning English. One is intelligible. We should learn English. We should take its grammar seriously. Why? Because it's important to make us understood. It's important to comprehend one another among speakers of English. This is very important. This is why we continue to study English. This is one trend. And there is another trend. What is it? There is a continued diversification of English. English is no longer owned by American speakers or British speakers. Now there is a very strange thing is happening. There are many, many different varieties of English that has been occurring in different continents of the world. For example, in West Africa, they are using their own variety of English, and the Caribbean, and they are speaking their own variety of English. And India, they have their own variety of English. There are many, many different forms of English is occurring. This is a unique event. So we are going to discuss. There is a production side of English, I would say. In other words, we continue to study English. And there is another side of English that is that is also the variety of English. So this is the issue of identity. Even though, for example, the language have two functions. One is to communication. You must make yourself understood by speaking English. But language have a different section, different function. That is, you must preserve your identity. You must keep your own identity. For example, even if we are speaking English, sometimes we want to keep our identity by speaking English in a way that is slightly different from the native English. So the people would say that is kind of Asian variety of English. So in this regard, there are many keywords there, the Creole form of English and Creole Pidgin, Creole, and the Singlish and Congolish, and the Franglais, and these are the keywords that we are going to discuss. So I have shown a snapshot into the first session of our class. I would say our class consists of 15, maybe 14 classes, 13 classes. So half of it is about our textbook and our Y English, and we are going to study the two textbooks. One is English story, the story of English, and the other textbook is English as a global language. And after doing that, we are going to move on the communicative aspect of English language. So let's take a break here before we are talking about the second session, how we can use English for the communication purpose.